Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It is Ed Matthews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today is an interesting show in that we discovered our guest. A friend of mine gave me his book and I read it. I can't say in a weekend. It probably took me about a week to read, but nevertheless, really enjoyed it. Thought his approach was unique and then spent the last couple of months trying to figure out how to get him on our show. Joel Miller, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
It is my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this too. This is going to be really good.
Yeah, should be great. For those of us who haven't discovered you out in the audience, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I'm based in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I have last month, from when we recorded this, I had celebrated 47 years in the rental property business, and about 1991 or so started flipping houses, flipped over 100 houses. And then about 2018 got into hard money lending, and I get great satisfaction out of being a part of the equation for many of the other investors in my area here, providing money to finance their flips or acquisitions of keeper rental properties that they want. And I asked you earlier before we came on, and I'll tell the audience what we were talking about. I asked you if you ever had a professional mobile disc jockey on your program before.
Yeah.
And that was something that I did. I pioneered the mobile DJ business in this part of the country back in the mid 70s. And after being on the radio for a while, and I did that for 35 years, 5,057 appearances, and retired from that about 14 years ago. But I bought my first rental property just a short time after starting that, and a short time after I graduated from college with a degree in accounting. So that is my educational background. But that doing two things like that, having a career that you're passionate about and having a rental property, is the premise of my book, Build Real Estate Wealth, Enjoy the Journey of Rental Property Investment, because the book deals with rental real estate to your already busy life when you don't necessarily want to give up a career or a vocation or some hobby that you're totally involved in, that having the rental property in addition to that can provide you additional income and build your retirement, because a lot of those things people are involved in, it isn't building a retirement for them. And as you and I both know, that is certainly one of the features of investing in rental property is, of course, cash flow along the way and retirement income, and perhaps cashing in and then having money in your retirement from selling your property, something like that. But I also, in the book, of course, provide information about how you can just supercharge your existing portfolio if you've already taken a step to invest in rental property. If in fact you want to get to leaving your day job, what job stands for is it's just over broke. If that's your goal, to do that. So the tools are in there as well.
Yeah, excellent. And it's something that I talk with folks that I mentor all the time, and that is you do not need to leave your job. And there's so many ways to get involved, whether that's as a side hustle, like you were talking about, or as a passive investor where you're investing in someone else's project like you do today, and any number of ways. You don't have to necessarily be the landlord, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that there are really three main reasons why people don't think that real estate is for them. They don't want to invest. And again, that is actually one of the target audiences of the book, is people who don't think that real estate is for them. And it's the first two stem from one of the misconceptions that people have about rental real estate, that it's all about broken toilets and bad tenants. So we try to dispel the myths about those sort of things. So one of the reasons why people don't invest is because they don't want to deal with the mechanical part of it, actually working on houses. And so I talk about how to do some of those things, but also the fact that it's totally okay to pick up the phone and call somebody to do something for you that you don't know how to do. And so if you're the owner of the property, your skills that you want to develop might be more with learning who to call as opposed to how to do it yourself. And of course, the other thing that I mentioned was interacting with tenants. And that is perhaps the biggest skill that you need to develop. And I will take that back to before you're actually interacting with the tenant you already have, to talk about tenant selection. which is totally key. I talk about in my classes that I teach and in the book about how your ability to select tenants is in direct proportion to how good of a time you're going to have in this business.
Right.
Because you might be really good at finding deals or even financing deals or even doing the work on the properties. But if you don't know how to select the tenants that are going to use your thing that's valued tens, maybe millions of dollars for an extended period of time without your direct supervision, if you can't get really good at making those selections, then it could go really bad for you, even though you have the skills with finding the deals and working on the properties.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, a difficult tenant is one of the biggest stressors in a property owner's life, right?
Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on how to make sure that obviously there's fair housing, so there's a qualification process that happens, but in terms of the qualifications of a good resident, what are you looking for in particular?
First of all, I just want to complete the answer to your last question.
Yes.
Just to make sure we don't leave anything hanging. The third thing is, since I did mention there were three things, the third thing is people are afraid of losing money.
Yes.
And of course, learning the skills for property selection as well, and managing property, managing contractors, managing tenants. Property management and tenant management are actually two different things. And tenant selection is part of tenant management. But those are things that are overcome by education. Education overcomes fear.
Yep.
And it boils down to people not wanting to get involved because they are afraid of something they don't know.
100%.
So the key is to become educated, and that is what the book is about. And sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. But in any case, if you become educated on something else, that you don't have to fear anymore. And of course, then you need to take action. You can go to all the seminars you want. People that they just think that they need to just go to that one more seminar or take one more class, and then finally they're either going to buy their first property then, or one way or another, they might have some property. Going to one more thing is going to make them rich.
Yes.
But it's not that. It's what you do with the information. You have to take action. And then beyond that, you have to be committed to seeing it through, because it starts some action and not finish it. So that kind of doesn't count all the way. I mean, you have to take it all the way through.
Right on.
There can be some pitfalls. Did you hear about the landlord that was seeing a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, and a licensed counselor, and he had an apartment complex?
Yeah.
He had a complex. He had to go see somebody. And that joke works on two levels, because an apartment complex could drive you crazy.
Right.
You don't know what you're doing.
Can and will if you don't pick your right time.
Yeah. Of course, a realtor could see somebody because they can't get closure.
Right. Indeed.
Closure on a deal, of course.
As opposed to emotional closure.
Yeah. But of course, a landlord is really just a realtor without a sense of humor.
Without a sense of what?
A landlord is just a realtor without a sense of humor.
Could be. Yeah, that's
in some cases. But anyway, to answer your question, what are we looking for in a tenant?
Yeah.
One of the first questions I ask people is how many, like I'm talking to a caller, somebody that responded to an ad of some sort. And by the way, this is not where tenant selection begins. I ask that question a lot. Where's tenant selection begin? When you get a call and you start talking to them, tenant selection actually begins when you are thinking about the possibility of maybe buying some real estate. Because every decision you make after that, from the type of property you're going to buy, to the location of the property, to the condition of the property, how you prepare the property, how you advertise the property, there's a whole string of things that happen before you even talk to somebody about the apartments that you have available. And every one of those things is slightly narrowing or more defining the universe of the people that are likely to respond to your ad.
Sure.
The location, the property, all that stuff we're talking about. So let's say you've got them on the phone. You asked, what are you trying to determine about the people? The first thing I ask is how many people they have, because I just want to make sure that they're not calling with too many people, for the size of the apartment. People sometimes legitimately, if their tenants are looking for a place, they might make a list of places to call, and they just simply might write the wrong phone number down. Like, we have a 2-bedroom advertised, and they are looking for a 4-bedroom, and they just called wrong. So we just wanted to ensure that I don't spend a lot of time on the phone talking with somebody who's got too many people. And then Depending on what your preference is with the pets, I'm going to ask whether they have pets and go from there. And sometimes they might say yes. I said, what do you have? And they got a hamster. I'm not worried about the hamster. I'm talking about other furry things that can walk around on their own through it. If you're a no pets property, that would be one of the first things to establish. And then we have all of our units are non-smoking. So that's my next question is, are you a smoker? So then beyond that, the really important stuff, of course, to establish is what their income is, because they have to prove that they can pay the amount of rent that you have. Yeah. There's the whole list. Yeah, I would ask them that.
Sure. What do you look for in income relative to rent?
Generally, let's say the apartment does not include utilities, then generally like the take-home pay, not the gross, the take-home pay about 3 times whatever the rent is per month.
Okay. Interesting. You clarified that to take home rather than overall.
Yeah. Because who knows what's coming out of their paycheck? They might be paying all kinds of stuff that like child support, or who knows what might be deducted that they don't have usage of in their net pay. And you get what I'm saying is you have to, you're looking for how much cash they actually have available, not how much they grossed. And the part about whether it includes utilities or not, if you were including a lot of utilities that they otherwise would have to pay on their own, like gas and electric, for example, then I don't think you need to have the same multiple, because you're not worrying about them using their money to pay utilities outside of your rent. That's standard, but it's good to make the distinction of whether it's gross or net.
Yeah. And your points are well taken, right? Folks can have garnishments, they can have additional taxes taken out for whatever reason, any number of reasons why they would have additional money coming out of that net, say $5,000-$6,000 a month. You got to get.
There's nuances there, though. You have to develop some skills to discern how you feel about their income if they're self-employed. It could make a difference whether you're talking. It would make a difference whether you're talking with somebody that's established in a business. Then they can show you however many years you want on Schedule C's for what they reported on their tax return, and somebody who started their business 2 or 3 months ago, and you determined that it's a seasonal business.
Got it.
Just to take it to a couple of extreme examples there. My theory on tenant selection is that it's up to the tenant to qualify them, and not for you to work to qualify the tenant. Your job is to eliminate everybody in the world till you find somebody that is likely to pay the rent on time and not beat the place up. And then only time will tell still, even in that case. But landlords sometimes inexperienced ones might get involved with trying to overlook something that is a negative on somebody's application, or because they like when they just want to figure out how they can qualify them, like, we won't worry about that thing or that thing. No, you have to just look for every reason why you don't want to rent to somebody and make them prove you wrong as far as how you're looking at the information.
Totally agree. Yeah. The fact is that we have here at Clark Street, we have a hard and fast set of qualification items, and it's binary. You either meet it or you don't. There's only one thing that we are willing to work with you on, and that is healthcare. So if you have some credit dings that have brought your credit rating down below where our standards are, and it's due to the fact that you had to bring your child to the emergency room, or you had to go to the emergency room, and that healthcare facility has dinged your credit, that we can work with you on. Other than that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that, because a whole other life situation than just deciding that you're not going to make your car payment, or you're going to make your credit card payment, because those are optional things that you chose to do, and now you're paying for them, or you're maybe not meeting your obligation to pay for them. Whereas that health situation is probably totally beyond control.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. Okay. So as you're buying the property, you're thinking about the profile of the type of human being or human beings that would live in the building. What's the kind of next step for you in terms of looking at these properties and evaluating them?
Looking at the properties with the tenant you're talking about, or
As
what are you
well,
talking about?
you said one of the things you said earlier was that you're already profiling the type of the economic abilities of the resident and all that when you're buying the building. So what else are you looking at?
Tenant selection begins with the selection of the building, is what you're referring to. Yeah.
Yes, I am.
I think that you are making those decisions as you go along. First of all, if you say, I want to invest in my town, there you go. You've narrowed it down to just people that live around where you do, as opposed to, I'm looking for an apartment complex in the next state or something like that. And then you either are accepting the type of tenant you're going to get with the type of property that you're going after because you think that property itself is a good deal.
Yep.
Or you are thinking of a certain type of person you want to rent to, and then you try to go find the property that somebody of that description is likely to want to rent. You have to make those decisions. I tend to just chase the good deals and then rely on my skills to do the best I can with the type of tenants that property is likely to attract. And of course, when you're advertising a property, you never want to advertise the type of person you want to have in the unit. You want to, or else you're going to run afoul of perhaps discrimination issues. But you always want to describe the property that you're the units you're offering, and hope that the type of people you want are attracted to what you have to offer.
Okay. So when you're buying a property or you're mentoring somebody else to buy a property, what does the capital stack usually look like?
You mean the type of financing?
Yeah. Are you more of a private financing, or are you more looking at private financing? Are you looking at bank financing with partners? Or what do you usually advise?
Well, let me answer that by telling you the first property that I bought in January of 1978, I got from savings and loan. I financed it with a savings and loan with 20% down from my savings and had a mortgage, which got refinanced a few times over the years, and then finally paid off because I still own that same property.
That's great.
Cash cow. Yeah. And then I can tell you that is the last property that I bought with conventional financing using a realtor, other than a couple of nice apartment complexes that we've gotten in the past 6 or 8 years after I retired from DJing.
Yep.
All the other ones were owner financing with low amounts down.
Okay.
And in fact, I have a son who he turned 19 over the winter, but he graduated from high school last June, and he bought his first rental property about a week after he graduated from high school.
That's awesome.
With owner financing, 5% down, 30-year amortization, 6% interest, 8-year balloon at $10,000 off of the asking price, which was originally $135. We got it for $120.
Good deal.
And it follows a lot of the structures that I've used over the years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, as a hard money lender, I get involved with the equations from a different angle there. When people are wanting to, we lend under two circumstances. One, the investor is borrowing the money to buy and or rehab a single family home that they are going to sell to a third party who is going to live there, in which case that's a flip. Or we're lending to an investor who is wanting to buy and or rehab a keeper rental property that they need to stabilize in some fashion, either with a rehab or putting different tenants in there, perhaps, and certainly getting higher rents, right, in order to stabilize that property and make it attractive for long-term permanent financing from a bank, in which case we get paid off whenever they have the refi closing for their permanent financing. But in that case, what has happened is that I have given them all the money that they needed to buy the property and closing costs and all the rehab. And they had an interest-only payment each month as they worked their way toward getting conventional financing. But in the meantime, they are forcing up the value of the property so that by the time they go to get the bank financing and the bank gives them 80% of an appraised value, that 80% is more than the 100% that they owed me, and they still leave the closing with money. So they got that property for nothing. Now it's just cash flow and equity growth and take your profit down the road. That's a good model right there.
Yes, it is.
So you have to be sure when you do something like that, if you're an investor, that you do in fact have a relationship with a bank that you're going to be able to get the long-term financing. Our loans are for a year, generally within a year and a half.
Yeah. And usually I find for the audience out there, I usually find that those types of lenders, in terms of the bank end of that conversation, like the refi out, you want to find portfolio lenders. And portfolio lenders tend to be your local credit unions, your local banks, folks where you can walk in and shake the hand of the person who's making the loan decision. So you can build a relationship. We're not talking about Bank of America and Chase, who don't view you as a relationship. They view you as a number.
And the same thing is true with hard money loans. Yeah. I only deal with the investors that are in my immediate geographic areas, my county, the next county. We're close to Ohio and New York, along where I'm from in Erie. I'm halfway between Cleveland and Buffalo, a little tiny part of Pennsylvania that touches Lake Erie. I'll lend in that whole area. But what I sometimes have to discuss with investors that have gone online and found some quote unquote hard money lender for states away, that I said, look, the further away your hard money lender is from you and your property, when they can't view your property and get to know you personally in the local landlord association, the more that hard money lender is going to seem like a bank.
Yep.
And act like a bank in terms of underwriting and so on.
Without a doubt.
And so to your audience, I would say, if you're interested in doing hard money lending, look right under your noses at the other investors who might have been in the business for a long time and have maybe accumulated some capital, and maybe they've recently sold off some properties or they have some money to lend. But at the same time, they're not just somebody that's never been in the real estate business who happens to have a pile of money and thinks they want to do hard money lending, which I strongly recommend against. The only reason why it works for me is because I've done everything that any investor has ever asked to borrow money for me for. I've done your project at some point in the past.
Indeed.
So I can walk it with you. And sometimes at the end of that walkthrough, because I don't land on any property that I don't see, I'll ask some questions during that interview or that walkthrough. And by the end of that, they're absolutely sure they do not want to buy that.
That's
because they didn't see something that I saw.
Yeah. The fact is that sometimes the best deal is no deal.
It's better to put it this way. How do I say it sometimes? A missed opportunity is better than a guaranteed loss.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
Yes. Amen to that. All right, Joel, I could talk for days with you about.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to get into our lightning round. We call it the final 5, and pretty easy questions. I just want to know and help the audience understand how your brain works and what makes you tick. So with that, we're going to dive in. Okay. All right, sir.
Having not heard these questions before.
That's the idea, right?
Okay.
I want your off the cuff answer. I'm always interested in how and what gets people out of bed on Monday morning. And so in the way that I think about that is purpose. And so I'm curious about what gets you out of bed on Monday morning. What is your purpose?
I have really enjoyed this career to the point where now it's not just about just making more money. It's about giving money back. So I'm real active in the community with my time and money, both in the community at large and in my church. And just being able to make more so I can give more is exciting.
Right. That's great.
And that's what keeps me going. That and the fact that, did I mention that 19-year-old that wants to come up in the real estate business? Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So he keeps me sharp, put it that way, because he's got a lot of questions.
That's what it's one of the beautiful things that kids do for us is keep us young and fire a whole bunch of questions at us. Smart kids do. So that's good. All right. So second question, I'm always interested in mentorship and not only providing mentorship, but also receiving. And so I'm curious about the mentors you've had in your life. What's the best advice you ever got and who gave it to you?
The best advice is don't take advice from anybody you wouldn't want to change places with.
That's good.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yep. That's good. Yeah. No need to elaborate. How about mistakes? I think, and you alluded to this, you either win or you learn, right? I think is what you said. And I fully subscribe to that as well. So I'm curious about a mistake you made in your business that you learned a valuable lesson from it. How'd you recover from it?
From a professional standpoint, like this, speaking strictly with real estate investing,
Sure.
the biggest mistake that I made was when I replaced the existing managing partner in a three-way partnership that owned a fairly large commercial, about a 60,000 foot office building.
Yeah.
And 50% of that building was it was the corporate offices of a catalog showroom type company. And 25% of it was a well-known local restaurant and banquet room. And that was in like September one year. And by November, both of the entities I just mentioned had gone bankrupt.
Oh.
And first into chapter 11, which is a workout, and then chapter 7, whatever. It just went on altogether. And so that was the beginning of years of trying to put out fires. And so the lesson really that I would point to is that if you are buying any type of property, and it seems like this would be most applicable to commercial property, where you might have some large tenants and some small tenants, as opposed to residential, where you've got a whole bunch of tenants that all have the same size of apartment and the same amount of rent. And the lesson would be to do a little bit more digging into the financial condition of the major tenants. I think I might have been able to uncover what was going on with these companies and maybe not done that deal, because there was a lot of hardship, especially with me being the managing partner and so on. And we made it through, but I can tell you that at the end of 10 years, I gave my share to the other two partners. I gave it to them just to be out from under that.
Yeah.
But there is one silver lining to this whole thing, and that is that I met my wife in that building, because one of our tenants was a realtor, one of their branch offices, and she worked in that office. And as the managing partner, I kept an extra key ring in there in case I were to show up at the building and didn't have my key ring with me and decided I needed to do something. I could go into that office and retrieve my extra keys. And she was the keeper of the keys.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Yeah. Just a good example of how there can be a silver lining in a very difficult situation.
There usually is. And that's a pretty good one. Okay. I'm also interested in how leaders like yourself, how you sharpen the saw, how you continue to learn. And I'm curious about the book on your either virtual or physical nightstand. What are you reading these days and who are you paying attention to?
I had to read my own book, podcast. I don't have a book at the moment, but I make sure that I keep up with the things that are put out by some of the people that I follow online that are putting out things like, for example, relating to this FinCEN thing that we've gone through lately with the registration of the entities. And if you want a couple of books to recommend, because I do go back and look at these things every once in a while, I would recommend Napoleon Hill's book, Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. But he also wrote Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, sure.
And the copyright on my copy is like 1967. These are older books. And then the one by Sterling Sill is How to Personally Profit from the Laws of Success. And all it is 99 laws in here, and a chapter for each law, 33 laws. But sharp, though, I teach. It sharpened me to write the book, which took 4 years.
Sure.
And I teach Landlord 101 to the members of the professional organization of landlords that I have belonged to since the early 80s. And in fact, that would be a big recommendation that I would have is wherever you are, find your local group, like-minded investors and landlords, and network and rub elbows and ask who they use, what contractor they use for this, or ask what bank they use for that. You don't want to be an island in this business. And that's one thing that has been a big part of my career is my membership in that. And I've been on the board since probably 2009, I think. I'm vice president and I teach classes, and that keeps you sharp.
Wonderful. All right. Last, but certainly not least, how do you define success?
Like I said, I sometimes teach these classes or end up talking in front of people in our masterminds and so on. And I am known for what I'm going to answer this question with. And that is that if I had a choice of losing all my money or losing all my relationships, I would lose my money in a heartbeat because my relationships will help me get my money back.
Correct.
If
Yeah.
I make a bunch of money and lose all my relationships, I would have nobody to share that with, and that wouldn't be interesting. So really success, having a degree of money that you maybe set a goal to have could be part of living a successful life, but it's not the thing. The thing is more what kind of person you are, what kind of relationship you have with your creator and the people that you love and that you and your community. Or when you leave, is it going to be a good footprint? Is the world going to be better from you being here for a while or not? And that's the areas that I look in a person for their success. You don't impress me if you have a whole bunch of money and I can see that you don't treat people right.
Yeah, that's a big turnoff for me as well. We used to, in my corporate days, we used to have this test where we would bring somebody in that we were recruiting, and we would send someone who was pretty low on the totem pole, like a receptionist or a maintenance person or somebody, to interact and to see how they'd react. And if it was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you, and please, then they were probably someone we wanted to deal with. But had a lot of people fail that test, and that was a pretty easy test.
I have something here that is extracted from my book. I just keep it handy, and I'll read it to you. That kind of touches on what we were just talking about. Watch your environment. It produces your thoughts. Watch your thoughts. They lead to your words. Watch your words. They lead to your actions. Watch your actions. They set your reputation. Watch your reputation. It influences your limits. Know your limits. They determine your destiny. Envision your destiny, and you will avoid negative environments, which takes you back to the first line about watching your environments. But that's what I think of when I think of trying to live a successful life, is doing things like that. And I also encourage you to use your ability to handle your personal and business money, to create cash, of course, but use your cash to create wealth. And there's a big difference between riches and wealth. I spend a whole chapter on that in the book. It's not the same. It's the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is just the facts. Wisdom is knowing what to do with the facts, right, in the right fashion. And then use your wealth to create a great life, by enjoying your great life. Share your joy with your relationships. Your relationships will help you create more cash, and the cycle starts over.
Indeed. That's great. So Joel, when you're not talking about real estate, what do you like to do for fun?
I have 6 things that I do real quick: ski, snowboard, mountain bike, whitewater rafting, and going down a river, and things like ropes courses, and just things like that. Unfortunately, I can do them with my son, and he likes to do the same things. But the thing I spend the most money on, though, is probably four-wheeling.
Fun but expensive habit.
Yeah.
Good hobby.
Those things, those machines aren't cheap.
Yeah, and you certainly live in the right part of the world to do all those things. So
yeah, we have 4 seasons here.
Yep, absolutely. So Joel, if folks want to get to know you or learn more about you, obviously they can get your book, Build Real Estate Wealth. Enjoy the journey of rental property investment. They can find that on Amazon and other outlets. But if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
They can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. What I would encourage people to do, and this is my call to action, is go to my website that's created for the book. It's joelmillerbooks.com. JoelMillerBooks.com. And on the front page, or on the home page of that, scroll down. There's a button there that you can click on that'll show you the entire table of contents, fairly detailed table of contents for the book. So you can see what we cover. And we cover everything from mindset through formation of an entity in which you could invest, and acquisition of the property, financing the property, acquisition and management of tenants and property, and so on, all the way through either evicting a tenant or keeping a tenant. And in addition to that, best practices for any kind of business, but it's slanted toward the rental property business to keep your life and your business out of calamity. I'm all about don't have the calamity in the first place.
Yes.
Take some precautions with the way you have your record keeping, because we do cover office creation and management and taxes and preparation of taxes. It's all there. And I have if you get the book at the end of the one, we do cover house flipping, but the book is primarily about rentals, but there's a short chapter about house flipping. And at the end of that, there's a QR code that will take you right to a bonus information on the how-to of house flipping. I didn't want to include that on the book. Use the QR code and you get the whole how-to house flip thing. You could see the whole table of contents. And the other thing that you can see on another button is sample writings from each of the chapters. 2 or 3 of the key paragraphs for each chapter is there. And you can really get an idea of what it is. And then, like I said, the bonus material is there if you have the books for the house flipping. But that's what I would encourage you to do. And there's information about my background, of course, on there. But it's a fairly concise website. It's not some big clunky and tons of unuseful things on it.
All right.
But it'll take you, there's plenty of buttons on there that'll take you right to where you can buy it on Amazon. We don't sell it from the website. You just click on a button to Amazon and buy it there.
Got it. Joel, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for your time today. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. And thank you again for taking the time to meet with us and to help educate our audience.
You're very welcome, Ed. It was my pleasure. I hope we've gotten underground a little bit, gotten a little behind the scenes. And
I feel like we have.
Talked about some stuff. But
yeah, excellent.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Have a good night.
You too.
This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.